This pendant is IKEA. This lamp is IKEA. This vase is IKEA. This is IKEA. This shelving system is IKEA. You can see it, but this ottoman is IKEA. And my office chair is IKEA. I clearly love IKEA. I think it has some amazing pieces. So yes, today we're talking about IKEA again, but this time focusing on some smaller categories that make a huge difference on how your home actually feels. I'm gonna go through storage, curtains, rugs, decor, lighting, and tell you which pieces are totally worth buying and which ones I would absolutely skip. And of course, this is all based on my own opinion, okay? This is my second video on this topic. On the first one, I covered most of IKEA's furniture categories. So if you haven't watched that one already, I'll leave the link in the description so you can watch it next. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, let's start with storage, because IKEA is actually very strong in this category. There are some pieces that look genuinely high-end and can elevate a space, but others that feel quite dated and low quality, no matter how popular they are. So let's start with the pieces that I would skip. The first one is the Fjällbo. It leans heavily into that industrial look, but to be honest, I feel it's a bit dated now. To me, it looks like it's trying too hard to be edgy, but ends up looking generic. Then there's the Haga and the Brimnes lines. And these two fall into the same category for me. Very flat, very boring and uninspiring, very IKEA starter furniture. The Haga has these angled edges that make it look bulky in a bad way. There's just nothing interesting or elevated about them compared to better alternatives. And I can already see people being mad at me in the comments for saying things like that. You shouldn't shame people for buying IKEA. Or what's the issue with an item looking IKEA? But hey folks, if you like those items, that's absolutely okay. It's just that in my opinion, some of them look more generic than others. Buying IKEA is not a problem. A product looking IKEA is not a problem if the item is styled correctly and if it makes sense in your house. But if you pair together a lot of IKEA looking pieces, your room will end up looking like an IKEA showroom and lack character. So what I'm trying to say with these videos is that even if you're browsing just IKEA, there are some items that bring a little bit more personality to the space. They have a more interesting shape, or the materials are nicer, stuff like that. Okay, disclaimer done. Let's continue on my list. The V-House is one of those items that look nice online, but when you see it in person, the quality really shows. The doors don't align properly, which is a huge red flag. If it's already crooked on day one, imagine how it would look in a year. Next line that I would skip, it's the Kallax. I know, it's iconic. I've had one before. But style-wise, it's not my favorite. It has that modular look, which is great for storing bins, but visually, not the best. It falls into the same generic IKEA furniture category for me. So I think there are much better alternatives. That's why I would skip the Kallax. There is one exception though. There's a new Kallax item. It's green with different sized niches. This one I think looks quite nice actually. And lastly, the Ladmakare. This one actually looks quite nice online, and even from a distance. But up close, the veneer quality just isn't it. You can see imperfections, and that makes it look cheap really quickly. If you're debating between this and the Billy, please, go ahead and get the Billy. So I think this is a good starting point for those items that I actually think are worth buying. So let's start with the Billy system. Honestly, IKEA at its best. Completely customizable. It can be open or closed storage due to its variety of doors and finishes, and it can look truly high-end with just a little styling. And it's very affordable, so I think the Billy is one of the best options of storage at IKEA at the moment, especially if you're looking for a bookcase or something like that. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more edgy and stylish, there's the Jättesta. One of my absolutely favorite IKEA lines, especially the ones in black. They're modern, clean, and the perfect backdrop for decor. I have 2 of these in my own dining room and I absolutely love them. It's also super affordable and surprisingly sturdy. So 10 out of 10. Next, the Himnes. It's a classic for a reason. Balanced mix of open and closed storage, solid construction, and it actually looks good even on the inside, which is rare at this price. If you want something metal and a bit more edgy, the Idasen is a really stylish choice. The green color is gorgeous and it doesn't feel like office furniture. It works so well in eclectic or industrial interiors. Unique without being overwhelming. Now, one of my absolute favorites is the Frixas cabinet. Stunning texture, lots of hidden storage, and it just feels expansive. It's warm, stylish, and makes the room look more intentional. I'm actually thinking about getting one for my entryway to store shoes. Another great piece is the Bostad. Sleek, modern, the sliding doors are surprisingly smooth and sturdy, and it offers a ton of storage without looking heavy. Also, the Tonstad line is overall awesome, but I love the display cabinet. It is perfect if you want to showcase beautiful ceramics or glassware. Elegant, sturdy, and quietly luxurious. Now, a couple of options for the bedroom. Starting with the Stormola. It is absolutely beautiful. Even in the whitewashed finish, the warm wood grain still shows through. But my favorite is this one in this warm tone wood. It feels solid, the drawers glide nicely, and it instantly adds warmth to a space. And finally, another Tonstad item. I love the dressers in this line, and I believe they are new. I think they're like the minimalist dream. Super clean lines, a beautiful veneer that doesn't look fake, and it has that high-end, built-in energy without being loud. It blends seamlessly into almost any style. Alright, so these are my favorites and least favorite items in the storage category at IKEA. And here I showed a few specific variations of each of these items, but several of these are lines, so you can find multiple pieces of the same line, like the dresser, or a storage cabinet, or a sideboard. And when I mention a line, I think the overall line is worth it or worth skipping in general. Okay, so let's move on to the next category on my list. Okay, I thought it would be nice to add a quick mention of curtains here in this video, because IKEA is actually a good alternative for the more expensive custom-made ones. They're much more affordable, and curtains are one of those items where the material really makes or breaks the whole look. Even if the color is right, it's the texture and the drape that actually determine if they look elevated or cheap. So let's start with the sheer options. For sheer curtains, I always look for natural materials with some texture. Something airy but not plastic looking. The Silver Lawn and the Stockholm 2025 are great options. I would skip the Stenfro and the Theresia. The fabric feels almost like plastic, and they don't fall nicely. It's the same thing for light filtering curtains. I look for natural materials with texture. My favorite ones are the Ritva and the Lenda. They hit that balance perfectly. Cotton, textured, not too heavy. I've recently added the Ritva curtains to my living room and my dining room, and oh my god, they made all the difference in the world. In this category, I would skip the Sanela and the Merite. They're too heavy and feel more synthetic, in my opinion. Now for the room darkening options. If you want some more light control without going full blackout, the Anna-Kaisa is a good alternative. It's thick, textured, and looks high quality. I would avoid something like the Maigol. It tends to peel and the material looks somewhat cheap in person. And finally, the blackout options. I would generally recommend skipping blackout curtains with a visible plastic backing, like the Bengta. They do block light. I actually have them in my bedroom just for function, because they are very affordable. But to be honest, up close, they look like a thin plastic sheet. So not ideal if aesthetics matter. Okay, so let's move on to the next category. This is one of my favorite categories at IKEA. Lighting. I get so excited whenever they launch new products in this category, and I have multiple IKEA lamps all throughout my house. And it was actually quite hard putting this list together because I think there are so many nice alternatives in this category at IKEA, but I tried to select the ones that I like the most, and other ones that I honestly don't know why exist. So I'll talk about floor lamps, table lamps, and some light pendants. So let's start with floor lamps, and specifically the ones that I would skip. First up, the Skaftet. I love an arc lamp, and I really wanted to love this one because it's so much more affordable than other arc lamps in other retailers. I had one in my dining room for over a year, and at first it looked amazing. But over time, the arc bended, and then the pendant started to get too low. So I think the arc material is just too soft to hold the weight of the pendant. I even broke mine accidentally when I moved recently. So in terms of durability, this one is a no, unfortunately. Then there's the Blancfear. To me, it's undersized, and you can see the metal joints, which makes it look cheap up close. The Klovning and the Folkbat are black lamps, which I love in theory, but these two wobble constantly and don't give the room any visual weight. They just look very low quality. Lastly, the Sinnerlig. I adore lamps with textured shades, but the thin legs on this one make it feel flimsy. It just doesn't anchor a space like a floor lamp should. Now for the floor lamps that I do recommend. The Niforce is a great alternative if you like chrome bases. The shade is larger, more textured, and immediately looks more premium than the Blancfear. The Hanarp and the Hectard are sturdy and well proportioned. Much better alternatives than the other two I mentioned previously if you're looking for a black lamp. I actually have the Hectard in my living room. And the Isiact is tall, sleek, and elegant. The brushed nickel finish is beautiful, and the top lamp comes with a dimmer, which is a wonderful bonus for layering light in a room. Now moving on to table lamps, and here again, starting with some that I would avoid. To me, the Blaswerk and the Hemtang feel cheap and plasticky, more like lamps for kids' rooms than a living space, in my opinion. Then there's the Solklint and the Hogvind. These are more about personal taste, but to me, they just don't add anything special. I don't particularly like how they look, but I know that some other people might, and that's absolutely okay. Now, let me mention the Stockholm 2025 fabric table lamp. The yellow one is fine, not my favorite, but it's kinda nice. But I just don't like this pattern. I don't know, to me the shape of this lamp is very classy, and they added a fun pattern, and I don't think it works. But again, it comes down to personal opinion. Okay, now onto the good stuff. The Deisa is one of my favorites. It's that one right there. It's minimalist, timeless, and creates the perfect glow. If you pair it with a dimmable light bulb, it gets even better. There's also the Fado. It is versatile and amazing for ambient lighting because the glass diffuses the glow beautifully. It's a great piece for eclectic interiors. I just think it looks so cool. For something a bit more sculptural, I think the Modermom is perfect. I like that it's tall and slim, and I think it can be a great piece to inject interest and height to a vignette. Now let's talk about the Warmblixt. It's one of those pieces that went viral for a reason. Interesting shape, like this donut shape, very fun and elegant. I must say, I get the hype. I think it looks super cool, and I think it will be one of those IKEA items that become classics over time. I wouldn't wall mount it though, because the cord becomes too visible. And finally, let's talk pendants. Some I'd avoid completely, starting with the Odelabad. I guess a good designer can make this piece work in a very intentional room, but this is just a no for me. I don't like the look and how plasticky it looks. The Taktovs is another nope. I love paper lanterns, but these things surrounding it just make it look so much worse. To me, they kinda look like those representations of the Earth's magnetic field, you know? Now, anything like the Kaufront or the Brunsta is a no. This black metal pendant look gives me early 2010s vibes. They just look so generic and overdone. And then there's the IKEA PS 2014. Honestly, unless you're decorating a kid's room with a sci-fi theme, I can't help but ask myself, why? The pendants I do love, though, are stunning. Starting with the blast tongue. It creates beautiful textures and patterns when lit, which is visibly so interesting. And the pendant itself is full of texture, so this is a 10 out of 10. Then there's the Gulsudare. It's my all-time favorite. I love it so much. Affordable, makes any room instantly cooler, and I've used it in multiple designs here on the channel. I also have one in my dining room, and it looks amazing. The Narkov is one that looks more expensive than it actually is, mostly because of the rattan texture, which adds warmth and sophistication. And finally, I have to mention the Stockholm 2025 light pendants and chandeliers, especially the one with the wavy textile shade. They are sculptural, elegant, and bring real presence to a room. The glass tube versions are beautiful too, but they probably collect dust very easily and are not so easy to clean, so they need a little bit more maintenance. But in terms of looks, I like it. Alright, moving on. Let's talk about rugs. Rugs are one of those pieces that anchor a room, and they have the power to set the tone for the entire space. But not all IKEA rugs are created equal. So let's start with the rugs that I would skip. First, the Bancontor. I'm not a fan of the deep waves in this rug. The difference in pile height will almost certainly make it a nightmare to clean. And honestly, I just don't think it looks all that great. Then there's the Hjortsvang. It sure looks cozy, but also looks harder than usual to clean. So I would probably avoid this one because of that. The Hoghus is another one that I would skip. IKEA markets it for living rooms or dining areas, but it's scratchy and uncomfortable. I mean, who wants a harsh rug underfoot in a place where you're supposed to relax and chill? And the Tittabel falls into the same category. The texture feels very rough, and even though it doesn't look bad, I just wouldn't put it in a living room. And finally, the Stockholm 2025 rug. I know a lot of people love this rug, but I personally struggle with the pattern. I can't visualize a room where it really works, so I would pass on this one. Now for the rugs that I do recommend. And let me say, when I was walking around the showroom, I had a hard time selecting just a few rugs as my favorite ones because they have such a large selection of great rugs. But anyway, here they are. The Elgiospar is absolutely stunning in person. The combination of colors is perfect and it's super soft since it's made of wool. It's a great base to ground the color palette of any room. The heatstick is an amazing option for a dining area. It's flat, so the chairs slide easily, and it's 100% cotton, which is a bonus. I saw the one with green accents in person, but there's also the one with red, which looks even better for my taste. The Tagspar is another one that I love. The mix of low and high pile gives it a unique texture, and being made of wool makes it feel both natural and luxurious. For those looking for a bolder rug, the Rasplatz is a good alternative. It's flat, making it practical for a dining space, and the graphic pattern with red edges adds a creative touch to a room. The Blauhues combines cotton and jute, which makes it low maintenance and visually subtle, with neutral colors and a delicate pattern that work almost anywhere. It was my first time seeing this one in person and I love it. The Bronden is a beautiful rug, and while it doesn't fit my personal style, I can definitely see it working in more colorful interiors. Multiple textures and natural materials make it stand out. Lastly, IKEA's jute rugs are some of the best alternatives for adding texture while keeping things neutral. Telemast, Haklev, and Lohhaus are excellent examples. I have the Lohhaus rug under my dining table and it works perfectly. The new Haklev adds a subtle touch of color, which is a nice update while keeping the neutral vibe intact. When it comes to rugs, I always prioritize natural materials like wool, cotton, and jute, soft textures where you can actually walk barefoot, and designs that are easy to live with. And in my opinion, all of those options hit these points. Now moving on to the next category on my list, decor. Now, when it comes to decor, IKEA is kind of a mixed bag. There are a few gems, but then again, a lot of pieces that I would just skip. So let's start with the ones that I would avoid. First, wall art. Period. I would avoid wall art in general at IKEA. Honestly, almost every single piece feels generic. Stock photos of beaches, abstract prints that look like they were pulled from a template, they're a recipe for a soulless room. You don't need random pictures of a rainforest in your bedroom to make it look cozy, okay? Instead of buying something generic, look for pieces with more personality elsewhere. Vintage art, small paintings from local artists, or even personal objects framed can make a room look much more alive. Decorative objects at IKEA are a similar story. I would skip about 99% of them for the same reason. Most of them feel like fillers and don't bring any character to a room. You're far better off collecting meaningful items. Souvenirs from travels, inherited pieces, or unique finds from thrift shops and antique stores. Those are the kinds of items that make a room truly yours. Now for the pieces that I do recommend. IKEA frames are my go-to. They're affordable, simple, and timeless. My personal favorite is the roll-down frame in this walnut finish. It's classic and works with almost any style. Mirrors are another win. Most of IKEA's mirrors are good value for money, and my favorites include the Viaxinen, Nissedal, Hovet, and the Stockholm. They're versatile, elegant, affordable, and instantly make a room look brighter and more spacious. A few of their vases and candle holders are also worth picking up. I like the Konz full glass vase, the Stockholm 2025 round bowl, and the Silverparon, Praktand, and Futalig candle holders. And there's one extra item that I think is underrated, the Variera. It's a pot lid organizer, but it looks so cool that I use it to display stuff. It's the one that you saw in the beginning of the video, right here behind me. And I have another one downstairs to organize my cooking books. So long story short, when it comes to decor, IKEA has a few nice options, but the real magic comes from personal touches and meaningful finds. Alright folks, and that's it for today's video. What did you think about my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. And as I mentioned before, this video is a part 2, so if you haven't watched part 1, here it is. But before you do that, don't forget to leave a like if you liked this video and consider subscribing to the channel to see more content like this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.